The rain had been falling over Brooklyn for 3 hours straight. The kind of October rain that soaked through jackets and chilled you to the bone. Maya Rodriguez watched the droplets race down the diner's front window, her reflection ghostly in the glass. The neon sign of Carmen's Diner buzzed intermittently above, casting pink and blue shadows across the wet pavement of the nearly empty street. Maya, honey, you heading out? Carmen's growly voice cut through her thoughts. The 72-year-old owner was wiping down the counter with the same faded yellow cloth she'd used for the past decade. Maya glanced at the clock above the kitchen pass rough. 10:47 p.m. Yeah, just finishing up the last table. She gestured toward booth 7 where a tired-looking truck driver was nursing his third coffee refill. Go on, I'll handle him, Carmen said, waving her off. You've been on your feet since 2. That's a double shift, kid. Maya managed a small smile. Thanks, Carmen. I'll just take out the trash on my way. Always the responsible one, Carmen muttered. But there was affection in her tone. Don't forget your umbrella this time. Maya retrieved her worn canvas jacket from the hook near the kitchen and grabbed the 2 trash bags sitting by the back door. The umbrella sat right where she'd left it that morning. She picked it up, then set it back down. The walk to her truck was only 20 feet. She'd survived worse. The kitchen's fluorescent lights flickered as she pushed through the back door into the alley. The rain hit her immediately, cold and insistent. Maya hefted the trash bags and moved quickly toward the dumpsters at the far end of the narrow passage between Carmen's Diner and the abandoned textile factory next door. Brooklyn at night had a particular quality, a mix of distant sirens, the hum of traffic from the expressway, and the constant rhythm of the city that never quite slept. Maya had lived here her whole 26 years. She knew which streets to avoid, which shortcuts to take, how to keep her head down and her keys between her fingers. She tossed the first bag into the dumpster, the metallic clang echoing off the brick walls. As she lifted the second bag, a sound made her freeze. Crying. Not just any crying. The desperate hiccuping wail of an infant. Maya's heart ceased. She dropped the trash bag, its contents spilling forgotten at her feet. The sound came from behind the larger dumpster, deeper in the shadows where the alley deadened ended. Hello. Her voice came out uncertain, swallowed by the rain. Is someone there? The crying intensified now clearly 2 different voices. 2 babies. Maya's feet moved before her mind fully processed what she was doing. She rounded the dumpster, her eyes struggling to adjust to the darkness. The narrow beam of the security light from the diner's back door barely reached this far. Then she saw them. 2 infant car seats sat on the wet asphalt, sheltered partially by a fire escape above. The babies inside, they couldn't have been more than 8 or 9 months old, were crying, their small faces red and scrunched with distress. But it was the man beside them that made Maya's breath catch in her throat. He was slumped against the brick wall, one hand gripping the handle of the nearest car seat with white-knuckled desperation. Even in the dim light, Maya could see the dark stain spreading across his left shoulder, mixing with the rain that plastered his dark hair to his forehead. Oh my God, Maya breathed, dropping to her knees beside him. The puddles soaked through her jeans instantly, but she barely noticed. Sir, can you hear me? The man's eyes fluttered open, dark eyes almost black in the shadows, filled with pain and something else. Fear, not for himself, Maya realized, but for the crying infants beside him. Please, his voice was barely above a whisper, heavily accented. Italian, maybe. Please don't. Hospital. They'll find. His head lulled to the side, consciousness slipping. Maya's hands shook as she pressed them against his shoulder, feeling the warm wetness seep between her fingers. She'd seen injuries before. 2 years of medical school before she dropped out had taught her enough to know this was serious. The wound on his shoulder was still bleeding, though not as heavily as it must have been initially. But his skin was cold, too cold, and his breathing was shallow. I need to call 911, Maya said, more to herself than to him. She fumbled for her phone with bloodied fingers. His hand shot out with surprising strength, gripping her wrist, his eyes locked onto hers with fierce intensity. No police, no hospital. They'll the children. You need medical attention, Maya insisted, but her voice wavered. Something in his desperation gave her pause. Please. The word came out as barely more than a breath. Please, Maya's mind raced. Every rational thought screamed at her to call for help, to do the right thing, the legal thing. But she looked at the two babies, still crying in their car seats, and then back at this man who was barely clinging to consciousness, yet still held on to them with everything he had left. She thought of her father bleeding out in a twisted car wreck 3 years ago while she held his hand and waited for ambulances that came too late. She thought of the desperation in this stranger's eyes and the way he'd fought to stay conscious just long enough to protect his children. Her children, Maya realized. This was a father protecting his babies. All right, Maya heard herself saying. All right, we'll do this differently. Can you walk if I help you? The man's relief was so profound that Maya felt a tightness in her chest. He struggled to sit up straighter. My truck, he managed. Can't leave it. Behind the building. Maya helped him to his feet, staggering under his weight. She was strong from years of hauling trays and working double shifts, but he was easily twice her size. She managed to get him around to where a black pickup truck sat in the shadows. The keys were in his pocket. Here, Maya said, taking them. I'll drive. Maya helped him into the passenger side, then went back for the babies. Diego and Sofia, she read from the car seats. The babies had stopped crying, but their eyes were wide and alert, watching her every move. It's okay, babies, Maya murmured as she carried them one by one to the truck. We're going to take care of you. The truck's passenger door squealed as she yanked it open. She secured one car seat in the back, then the other, her fingers fumbling with the seat belts. The babies had quieted to whimpers, their wide eyes watching her with that peculiar awareness infants sometimes have. It's okay, Maya murmured to them, though she had no idea if that was true. It's going to be okay. The man had slid down the side of the truck by the time she returned to him. Maya's heart hammered as she helped him into the passenger seat. His head fell back against the headrest. His breathing labored. Stay with me, Maya said firmly, slamming the door and racing around to the driver's side. The engine coughed twice before turning over. Maya's hands white-knuckled the steering wheel as she pulled away from the diner, her eyes darting between the road and the man beside her. His name tag, she could see it now in the dim glow of the dashboard, read simply, G. Santos. The suit, even ruined, was clearly expensive. The watch on his wrist probably cost more than Maya made in 6 months. His shoes were Italian leather. What had she gotten herself into? The drive to her apartment in Queens usually took 30 minutes. Maya made it in 18, running 2 red lights and pushing her truck to speeds that made the frame rattle. She kept talking the whole way, partly to keep him conscious and partly to keep herself from panicking. I'm Maya, by the way. Maya Rodriguez. I live alone. Well, I guess not anymore. At least for tonight. My apartment's small, but it's clean. I have some medical supplies. I used to be in med school. Did I mention that? 2 years at NYU before I dropped out. My parents died. Car accident. And I couldn't. Anyway, I remember enough. I thank God. I hope I remember enough. The man, Santos, made a sound that might have been acknowledgement. In the back seat, one of the twins started crying again. A tired, frightened sound that made Maya's chest ache. Almost there, she promised them all. Almost there. Her apartment building was a tired 4-story walk-up in Etoria, the kind of place where everyone minded their own business, and the landlord only fixed things when they became fire hazards. Maya parked as close to the entrance as possible and sat for a moment, her hands still gripping the wheel, reality crashing over her. She had just brought a wounded stranger and 2 babies to her home. She hadn't called the police. She had no idea what had happened to him, who he was running from, or why he was so desperate to avoid hospitals. Santos's hand touched her arm, making her jump. His eyes were open, clearer now, despite the pain etched in every line of his face. Thank you, he said simply. Those 2 words, spoken with such genuine gratitude, steadied something in Maya. She nodded. Let's get you inside. Getting him up 3 flights of stairs was a nightmare. Santos could barely stand, let alone climb. Maya supported most of his weight, her legs burning by the 2nd floor. The twins, thank God, stayed quiet in their carriers. By the time they reached her apartment door, both Maya and Santos were breathing hard. Maya's hands shook as she unlocked her door. She got him inside and immediately to her small couch, where he collapsed with a soft groan. The apartment was cramped but clean. A efficiency studio with a Murphy bed she'd pulled down earlier, a tiny kitchenette, and 1 bathroom. It wasn't much, but it was hers. Maya set the car seats on her kitchen table and immediately began assessing Santos's wound. "Help me get your jacket off," she said gently. The jacket was expensive wool, now ruined by blood and rain. Underneath, his white dress shirt was soaked through. Maya carefully peeled the fabric away from his shoulder, revealing a deep gash that was still bleeding steadily. "I need to clean this and close it," Maya said, more to herself than to him. "Do you have any allergies? Medications?" Santos shook his head slightly. "Just do what you have to do." Maya's medical training, rusty as it was, kicked in. She gathered supplies from her bathroom and kitchen. Rubbing alcohol, gauze, medical tape, and a needle and thread from her sewing kit. Not ideal, but it would have to work. "This is going to hurt," Maya warned. Santos just nodded. He gritted his teeth and gripped the arm of her couch as Maya cleaned and stitched the wound. She worked carefully, her hands steadier than she'd expected. The cut was deep but clean, no major arteries hit. He'd been lucky. When she finished, Santos had passed out from the pain. Maya covered him with her spare blanket and checked on the twins. They were awake but quiet, watching her with those impossible dark eyes. Maya heated 2 bottles she found in the diaper bag Santos had been carrying and fed them carefully. Diego, the boy, ate hungrily. Sofia, the girl, was more cautious, studying Maya's face as she drank. "They're beautiful," Maya whispered. She changed their diapers, marveling at how tiny they were, how perfectly formed. Diego had his father's dark hair. Sofia had softer features, probably from her mother. Maya wondered where their mother was, if she was safe, if she even knew what had happened tonight. As dawn broke over Queens, Maya sat in her chair watching over her unexpected charges. Santos, she had his name now, who was running from something terrible enough to risk dying in an alley rather than go to a hospital. And Diego and Sofia, 2 innocent babies caught in whatever storm their father was facing. The man stirred just as Maya was starting to doze off. His eyes opened slowly, focusing on her with effort. "Where?" he started, his voice hoarse. "My apartment in Queens," Maya said quietly. "You're safe." "The babies." Santos tried to sit up, panic flashing across his face. "They're fine," Maya assured him, gesturing to the car seats beside her. "Fed and changed. They're beautiful children." Santos relaxed slightly, though his eyes remained alert. "Thank you," he said again. Maya studied his face. He was probably in his early 30s, with olive skin and strong features. Even injured and exhausted, there was an intensity about him that suggested he wasn't used to being helpless. "What happened to you?" Maya asked gently. Santos was quiet for so long Maya thought he might not answer. "An ambush," he said finally. "Someone I trusted set me up. If you hadn't found me." He didn't finish the sentence. Maya looked at the babies, sleeping peacefully now. "What about their mother?" Santos's face crumpled with grief, so raw Maya immediately regretted asking. "Isabella died 6 months ago," he said quietly. "Complications after the birth. It's just been the 3 of us since then." Maya felt tears prick her eyes. "I'm so sorry." Santos nodded, unable to speak for a moment. Maya waited, letting him compose himself. "I'm Gabriel," he said finally. "Gabriel Santos. And those are my children, Diego and Sofia. I'm Maya Rodriguez." "Maya," Gabriel repeated, as if testing the name. "Thank you, Maya, for everything. You probably saved our lives tonight." Maya studied his face. Gabriel Santos. The name didn't sound familiar, but something about his expensive clothes and the way those men had been hunting him suggested this wasn't a random mugging gone wrong. "What kind of trouble are you in, Gabriel?" Gabriel met her eyes. "The kind that's dangerous for anyone who gets involved. You should know that. Before this goes any further." Maya looked at the sleeping babies. "Too late for that, don't you think?" Gabriel followed her gaze. "I can make arrangements. Move us somewhere safe." "You don't have to." "Maya," Gabriel said, his voice firm despite his weakness. "You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into by helping us." "I understand that," Maya said. "But I'm not going to abandon 2 babies and their father because it's inconvenient or dangerous." Gabriel stared at her for a long moment. "You don't know me. For all you know, I could be the bad guy in all this." Maya considered this. "Are you?" Gabriel's mouth curved in what might have been a smile. "That's complicated." Maya nodded. "Most things worth doing are." The next few hours passed in careful routine. Maya called in sick to work, fabricating a stomach virus. Gabriel slept fitfully, his body fighting infection and blood loss. The twins woke every few hours, needing food and attention. Maya found herself settling into the rhythm of caring for them, surprised by how natural it felt. Gabriel woke late that evening, more alert than before. His fever had broken, and some color had returned to his face. "How are you feeling?" Maya asked, bringing him a glass of water and some soup she'd heated from a can. "Better," Gabriel said, accepting the soup gratefully. "Maya, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest." Maya sat down across from him. "Okay, are you prepared for what might happen if they find us here? The men who did this to me, they won't stop looking. And if they find me, they'll assume you're involved." Maya felt a chill run down her spine. "What exactly are we talking about?" Gabriel met her eyes steadily. "I'm not just a businessman, Maya. My family, we're connected to certain organizations that operate outside the law. I've been trying to distance myself since Isabella died, especially for the sake of the children. But some people don't want to let me go." Maya absorbed this information. She'd suspected something like this, but hearing it confirmed was still a shock. "So you're—" Gabriel nodded grimly. "What some people would call a criminal." "Yes." Maya looked at Diego and Sofia, sleeping peacefully in their car seats. "And what do you call yourself?" "A father trying to keep his children safe," Gabriel said without hesitation. "That's all I care about now." Maya stood up and walked to her small window, looking out at the street below. Everything looked normal. Cars parked along the curb, lights on in other apartments. Life continuing as usual. But now she knew that danger could be circling out there, looking for the man on her couch and the babies she was already starting to care about. When she turned back to Gabriel, her decision was made. "What do we need to do to keep them safe?" Gabriel looked surprised. "Maya, you don't understand." "I do understand," Maya said firmly. "I understand that you're injured and alone with 2 infant children. I understand that people are trying to hurt you, which means they might try to hurt Diego and Sofia. And I understand that I'm the only person standing between you and whatever's out there right now." Gabriel studied her face. "You could walk away. Call the police. Tell them you found us and couldn't handle the situation. They'd protect you." "Maybe," Maya said. "Or maybe the same people who want to hurt you would decide I knew too much." Gabriel's expression darkened because he knew she was right. Maya sat back down. "Besides," she said more gently, "I don't think I could live with myself if something happened to those babies." Gabriel was quiet for a long moment. "There are safe houses," he said finally. "People I trust who could help us disappear until things cool down. But it would mean leaving everything behind. For all of us." Maya thought about her life. Her dead-end job at the diner, her tiny apartment, her student loan debt, her few acquaintances who barely qualified as friends. What exactly would she be leaving behind? "How long?" Maya asked. Gabriel shrugged. "Weeks. Maybe months. It depends on how long it takes to resolve the situation." Maya looked at the babies again. Diego was starting to fuss, probably getting hungry. She picked him up automatically, surprised by how natural the movement felt. "If I do this," Maya said slowly, "help you disappear with Diego and Sofia, what happens when it's over?" Gabriel met her eyes. "I don't know," he said honestly. "I hope you'd consider staying with us. Being part of our family. The children already trust you, and I." He paused. "I haven't felt this safe with anyone since Isabella died." Maya's heart pounded. This was insane. She barely knew this man, and he was asking her to abandon her entire life to help him hide from dangerous people while playing mother to his children. It should have been an easy no. But as Diego settled against her shoulder and Sofia made soft cooing sounds in her sleep, Maya realized it didn't feel insane at all. It felt like the first real purpose she'd found since dropping out of medical school. "Okay," Maya said quietly. Gabriel blinked. Okay, I'll help you. I'll come with you and the babies." Gabriel stared at her. "Maya, you need to think about this." "I have thought about it," Maya said. "And my answer is yes." Gabriel's relief was so profound that Maya realized how desperate he'd been, how much he'd been dreading the thought of managing this alone while injured. "Thank you," Gabriel said, his voice thick with emotion. "I promise you won't regret this." Maya looked down at Diego, now sleeping peacefully in her arms, then at Sofia in her car seat. "I hope not," she murmured. "For their sake, I really hope not." The next morning, Gabriel was strong enough to make some phone calls. Maya listened to him speak in rapid Spanish to someone named Carlos, discussing routes and safe houses and clean identities. The efficiency with which he arranged their disappearance was both impressive and terrifying. We leave tonight, Gabriel told her when he hung up. Carlos will pick us up at midnight. Maya nodded, trying to push down the butterflies in her stomach. She spent the day gathering the few possessions she couldn't bear to leave behind. Some clothes, a few photos of her parents, her mother's jewelry. Everything else would stay. Gabriel watched her pack with an unreadable expression. Having second thoughts, he asked gently. No, Maya said, and was surprised to realize she meant it. Are you? Gabriel looked at his children. For the first time since Isabella died, I feel like we might actually have a future, he said. So no second thoughts. That night, as they waited for Carlos to arrive, Maya fed Diego while Gabriel held Sofia. They'd fallen into an easy rhythm of childcare, working together as if they'd been doing it for months instead of days. Maya, Gabriel said suddenly. Yeah, whatever happens, wherever we end up, I want you to know that what you're doing, helping us like this, it's not something I'll ever forget. Maya looked at him, this man who'd stumbled into her life covered in blood and fear, carrying 2 babies and running from ghosts she couldn't even imagine. I know, she said simply. Gabriel smiled, the first real smile she'd seen from him. And Maya realized that whatever came next, whatever dangers they were running toward or away from, she'd made the right choice. At midnight, a black SUV pulled up outside Maya's building. Carlos was a bear of a man with kind eyes and gentle hands when he took the car seats from Gabriel. No questions, just efficient help getting them to the vehicle. As they drove through the empty streets of New York, leaving the city behind, Maya looked back once at the lights disappearing in the distance. Then she turned forward, toward whatever future waited for them, and didn't look back again. 2 months later, in a small house in rural Vermont, Maya woke to the sound of Sofia crying. She padded to the nursery they'd set up in the second bedroom, where both babies slept. Sofia was teething, her little face red with frustration. Maya picked her up, murmuring soft words in Spanish she'd been learning, and walked to the kitchen to get a teething ring from the freezer. Gabriel was already there, making coffee in the pre-dawn darkness. Couldn't sleep either, he said, taking Sofia from Maya and bouncing her gently. The baby immediately calmed in her father's arms. Maya poured herself coffee and watched Gabriel with Sofia. He'd healed completely from his shoulder wound, and the constant fear had faded from his eyes. Here, in their temporary sanctuary, he looked younger, more at peace. Any word from Carlos? Maya asked. Gabriel nodded. It's almost over. They found the man who set up the ambush. Once he's dealt with, we can start thinking about more permanent arrangements. Maya felt a flutter of anxiety. They'd been living in limbo, knowing this was temporary. But she'd grown to love their little routine, their pretend family life. What kind of arrangements? She asked carefully. Gabriel set Sofia in her high chair and turned to face Maya. That depends on what you want, he said. I could set you up anywhere you'd like to go. New identity, money to start over, go back to school if you want. Or, he paused, or you could stay with us. Permanently. I know it's a lot to ask, and I know this isn't the life you planned, but... Gabriel stopped, looking suddenly uncertain. Maya set down her coffee cup. Gabriel. These past 2 months, Gabriel continued, watching you with Diego and Sofia, building this life together, even if it's temporary. I haven't just fallen in love with the idea of having help with the children. I've fallen in love with you. Maya's breath caught. Gabriel, I know it's complicated, Gabriel said quickly. I know there are 1,000 reasons why this is a terrible idea. I'm not exactly safe to be around. My life isn't normal, and you barely knew me when you agreed to all this. But Maya, you've become part of our family. Diego and Sofia adore you. And he touched her face gently. I can't imagine our lives without you anymore. Maya looked at Sofia, babbling happily in her high chair, then thought of Diego still sleeping in the nursery. 2 months ago, she'd been a broke waitress with no real purpose beyond survival. Now she was effectively a mother to 2 beautiful children and falling in love with their father despite every rational reason not to. Gabriel, Maya said softly, I need you to know something. I didn't stay because I felt sorry for you, or because I thought it was the right thing to do. Gabriel waited. I stayed because from the moment I found you in that alley, holding onto those car seats like your life depended on it, I knew I wanted to protect you. All of you. And these past 2 months, watching you be a father, seeing how much you love Diego and Sofia, learning who you really are when you're not running from danger. She paused. I've fallen in love with you too. Gabriel's smile was brilliant. So you'll stay? Permanently. Maya kissed him, soft and sweet with the promise of a future she'd never imagined wanting. Yes, she said. I'll stay. 6 months later, Maya, now legally Maria Santos thanks to Gabriel's connections, pushed a stroller through their new neighborhood in coastal North Carolina. Diego and Sophia, now walking and getting into everything, tottered beside her while Gabriel walked with her, his arm around her waist. He'd stepped back from his family's organization entirely, investing their money in legitimate businesses. It wasn't perfect. There were still occasional security concerns, still moments when Gabriel would tense at unexpected sounds. But they were building something real. A family forged in impossible circumstances, held together by love that had grown out of the darkest night Maya could imagine. No regrets, Gabriel asked, watching her laugh as Diego chased a butterfly. Maya thought of that rainy night in Brooklyn, the choice that had changed everything. Not a single one, she said. And she meant it. Some love stories began in darkness, but they could still find their way to light. 3 years had passed since that rainy night in Brooklyn, and Maya Santos stood in the kitchen of their coastal North Carolina home, watching Gabriel teach Diego and Sophia how to crack eggs for pancakes. The morning sun streamed through windows that overlooked a small garden where Isabella's roses bloomed in careful rows. Gabriel had planted them the first spring they'd lived here, needing something beautiful to remember her by. Maya smiled as Sophia, now almost 4, declared that her egg was the best one ever cracked in the history of eggs. Diego, ever the perfectionist like his father, frowned at his slightly messy attempt and asked to try again. These were the moments Maya treasured most, the ordinary magic of family life that she'd never imagined wanting so desperately. Her phone buzzed on the counter. A text from Dr. Williams at the local medical school where she'd been completing her degree through their accelerated program for experienced students. Maya had thrown herself into her studies with the determination of someone who'd found her purpose late, but held it tight. The text was simple but life-changing. Congratulations, Dr. Rodriguez Santos. You passed your final comprehensive exams. Welcome to the medical profession. Maya stared at the phone, hardly believing it. After all these years, all the stops and starts, she'd finally done it. She was going to be a doctor. Gabriel noticed her stillness and moved closer, flower dusting his dark hair. What is it? He asked, concern flickering in his eyes. Those protective instincts never fully disappeared, even in their peaceful life. I passed, Maya said, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm going to be a doctor. Gabriel's smile was brilliant, proud, full of the love that had sustained them through 3 years of building this life together. He pulled her into his arms, spinning her around the kitchen while Diego and Sophia giggled and demanded to know what was happening. Mama Maya is going to be a doctor, Gabriel told them, using the name they'd chosen together when the children started calling her that naturally. She's going to help sick people feel better. Like when Papa had his hurt shoulder, Sophia asked with the serious expression she wore when trying to understand adult things. Maya met Gabriel's eyes over Sophia's head, remembering that night, the fear and desperation that had brought them together. Exactly like that, baby. When people are hurt and scared, I'll help them feel safe again. The celebration continued through breakfast and into the afternoon. Gabriel called Carlos, who now managed most of Gabriel's remaining legitimate business interests, allowing Gabriel to focus on his family and his new role as a silent partner in a local construction company that specialized in affordable housing. It was work that felt meaningful, building homes for families who needed them, far removed from the shadows of his past. That evening, after Diego and Sophia were in bed, Maya and Gabriel walked along the beach that was just a 5-minute drive from their house. The ocean stretched endlessly before them, waves catching moonlight like scattered diamonds. Gabriel carried a bottle of champagne they'd been saving for a special occasion, and Maya couldn't imagine a more perfect moment to open it. They found their favorite spot, a piece of driftwood that had become their unofficial bench, and Gabriel poured champagne into plastic cups with the practical romance of a man who'd learned that love lived in small, everyday gestures as much as grand ones. To Dr. Maya Santos, Gabriel said, raising his cup, who saves lives and somehow saved mine in the process. Maya touched her cup to his, the soft clink barely audible over the waves. To us. to impossible love stories that somehow work out anyway. They drank in comfortable silence, watching stars appear over the water. Maya thought about the woman she'd been 3 years ago, working double shifts at Carmen's diner, living paycheck to paycheck with no real direction. That Maya could never have imagined this life, this love, this sense of belonging. Gabriel, Maya said eventually, I want to tell you something. He turned to face her, giving her his full attention in the way he always did when she had something serious to say. When I was in that alley, when I first found you, there was a moment when I almost walked away. Every rational part of my brain was screaming at me to call 911 and let someone else handle it. Gabriel waited, understanding that she needed to say this. But then I looked at Diego and Sofia, and I saw how desperately you were holding on to them even though you were barely conscious. And I realized that whatever brought you to that moment, you were fighting for them. You were a father who would die before he let anything happen to his children. Maya paused, gathering her thoughts. I fell in love with you that night, before I even knew your name. Not with your face, or your charm, or your mystery. I fell in love with your heart. Gabriel set down his champagne and cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs tracing along her cheekbones. Maya, he said softly, do you know what I remember most about that night? Tell me. Your hands. Gabriel's voice was thick with emotion. When you were cleaning my wound, stitching me up, your hands never shook. You were terrified, I could see it in your eyes, but your hands were steady because you knew I needed you to be steady. That's when I knew you were extraordinary. Maya felt tears gathering in her eyes. We were so broken when we found each other. We were, Gabriel agreed. But maybe that's what we needed. To be broken enough to let someone else in, to build something new together. They made love that night with the tenderness of people who'd found their home in each other, who'd learned that passion could deepen into something richer than desire. Afterward, Maya lay with her head on Gabriel's chest, listening to his heartbeat and thinking about the future stretching ahead of them. Gabriel, she said into the darkness. I want to have another baby. Gabriel's hand stilled where it had been stroking her hair. A baby. Our baby. Maya lifted her head to look at him. Is that something you'd want? Gabriel's smile was soft, wondering. I thought Diego and Sofia would be my only children. After Isabella died, I couldn't imagine loving anyone enough to want that again. But with you. He touched her face gently. Yes, I'd love to have a baby with you. The next morning, Maya woke to find Gabriel already up, standing at their bedroom window with a cup of coffee, looking out at the garden. She watched him for a moment. This man who'd become her anchor, her home, her future. The morning light caught the silver that had started threading through his dark hair, the laugh lines that had deepened over their 3 years together. What are you thinking about? She asked, joining him at the window. Gabriel wrapped his arm around her waist. I was thinking about Isabella, he said honestly, about how she'd feel about all this. About us, about our plans for another baby, about the life we've built. Maya leaned into him, understanding the complexity of loving someone who'd lost their first great love. What do you think she'd say? Gabriel was quiet for a long moment. I think she'd be happy that Diego and Sofia have you. That they're growing up with a mother who loves them completely, who fights for them the way you do. And I think she'd be happy that I found love again, even though I never thought I could. Maya turned in his arms. Isabella will always be part of our family. She's Diego and Sofia's mother, and she's the reason you became the man I fell in love with. Our future doesn't erase her memory. It honors it. Gabriel kissed her forehead, a gesture of gratitude and love. How did I get so lucky twice in one lifetime? The months that followed were a whirlwind of new beginnings. Maya started her residency at the regional hospital, specializing in emergency medicine because she'd learned in that alley behind Carmen's diner that she was good in a crisis, that she could think clearly when everything was falling apart. Gabriel expanded the construction business, hiring veterans and former addicts who needed second chances, building not just houses but hope. Diego started kindergarten with the confidence of a child who'd always been secure in love. Sofia began preschool and announced her intention to become either a doctor like Mama Maya or a builder like Papa, depending on her mood. Their family settled into the rhythm of ordinary life, made extraordinary by how much they treasured it. On a warm evening in October, exactly 4 years after Maya had found Gabriel in that alley, they hosted their first real dinner party. Carlos and his wife drove down from Virginia, along with Dr. Williams and his husband, and Maya's friend Elena, who'd finally convinced her boyfriend to propose by threatening to dump him if he didn't figure out what he wanted. As Maya watched Gabriel laugh at one of Carlos's stories while simultaneously cutting Sophia's chicken and reminding Diego to use his napkin, she felt the deep satisfaction of a life fully lived. This was what happiness looked like, she realized. Not constant joy or perpetual excitement, but this steady contentment, this sense of being exactly where you belonged with exactly the right people. Later, after their guests had gone home and the children were asleep, Maya found Gabriel cleaning up the kitchen with the methodical efficiency he brought to everything. She wrapped her arms around his waist from behind, pressing her face against his shoulder. "Good party," Gabriel said, leaning back into her embrace. "The best," Maya agreed. "Gabriel, I have something to tell you." She felt him tense slightly, the old instincts never fully dormant. "Good news or bad news?" "The best news," Maya said, stepping around to face him. "I'm pregnant." Gabriel's face went through a series of emotions: surprise, joy, wonder, before settling on pure happiness. "Really? Really?" "About 6 weeks along." Gabriel lifted her off her feet, spinning her around the kitchen just like he had when she'd gotten her medical degree. "A baby," he said against her hair. "Our baby." Maya laughed, giddy with joy and possibility. "I know the timing isn't perfect with my residency just starting, but—" "Maya," Gabriel interrupted, cupping her face in his hands. "The timing is perfect because it's our timing. We'll figure it out, just like we've figured out everything else." 9 months later, Maya gave birth to Isabella Rose Santos in the same hospital where she was completing her residency. Gabriel held his daughter for the first time with tears streaming down his face, overwhelmed by love for this tiny person who looked like Maya but had his stubborn chin. Diego and Sofia were instantly besotted with their baby sister, competing to help with feedings and diaper changes. Maya watched Gabriel navigate 3 children with the same steady competence he'd shown with 2, marveling at how love could expand to encompass whatever it needed to encompass. Dr. Maya Santos returned to her residency after maternity leave with renewed focus, driven by the knowledge that she was building something important not just for herself, but for her family. She specialized in trauma care, drawn to help people in their worst moments, to be steady hands in someone else's crisis. Gabriel continued expanding the construction business, eventually opening a nonprofit wing that focused on building homes for families transitioning out of homelessness. It was work that felt like redemption, using skills learned in a different life to create something purely good. Their life wasn't perfect. Maya's residency hours were brutal, and Gabriel still had moments when old shadows crossed his face, when a news story or an unexpected phone call reminded them both that his past wasn't completely buried. But they'd learned to weather difficulties together, to trust in the foundation they'd built. On Isabella's first birthday, they threw a party in their backyard garden. The roses Isabella had planted for his first wife bloomed alongside new flowers Maya had added, a living symbol of how past and present could coexist beautifully. Diego, now 7, helped his father man the grill while Sofia, 5 and fearless, appointed herself the party coordinator. Maya sat in the grass with baby Isabella, watching their family and friends laugh and eat and celebrate. Elena was there with her new husband, Carlos, and his wife with their twin boys, Dr. Williams and his husband, neighbors who'd become genuine friends. It was the kind of gathering Maya had dreamed of as a child, but never quite believed she'd have. Gabriel appeared beside her, dropping into the grass with the easy grace of a man completely at home in his life. He reached for Isabella, who immediately started babbling and reaching for his face. "Happy?" he asked Maya, the same question he'd been asking for 5 years now. Maya looked around at their life, their children, their garden, their community of chosen family. "Completely," she said, meaning it with every fiber of her being. As the sun set over their North Carolina coast, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Maya thought about the randomness of love, how it could find you in the most unlikely places and transform you into someone you never imagined being. She thought about the scared waitress who'd stumbled upon a wounded man and 2 crying babies in an alley, and how that moment of choice had led to everything good in her life. Gabriel reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers with the unconscious ease of long partnership. In 5 years, they'd built something extraordinary from the wreckage of their separate pasts. They'd created safety, stability, joy, and above all, they'd learned that love could heal almost anything if you were brave enough to let it. Some love stories began in darkness, Maya thought, watching her family in the golden light of sunset. But with patience, courage, and faith, they could find their way not just to light, but to something that blazed brighter than either person could have created alone. They could find their way home.